There is a level of mastery that doesn't look human, a level where a person moves without hesitation, learns without fear, and improves without stopping. A level where discipline isn't forced, it's instinct, automatic, silent, terrifying. In Japan, there is a name for this transformation: Shuhari, a three-stage system so old, so relentless, so brutally honest that only a few people in an entire generation ever complete it. Most students fail in the first stage. Many break in the second. Almost nobody reaches the third, because Shuhari doesn't teach you how to master a skill. It teaches you how to kill the version of yourself that keeps failing. Today, you're going to see this system through the eyes of a real apprentice, a young man who walked into a traditional dojo thinking he was ready and discovered that Shuhari isn't a path you walk. It's a path that walks through you. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what skill, habit, or discipline would you want to master if failure stopped being an option? And subscribe if you want more videos that push you past your limits, because this one will. The Arrival. His name was Daichi, 19 years old, ambitious, stubborn, a mind full of dreams and a heart full of noise. He wasn't joining the dojo because he loved martial arts. He came because he was tired of quitting everything he started: school, workouts, meditation, reading, side projects, promises he'd made to himself year after year and broken every time. He believed discipline was his problem. He thought the dojo would give him motivation. He thought the master would teach him how not to give up. But Shuhari does not care about your motivations. It does not care about your emotions. And it certainly does not care about your expectations. The dojo Daichi arrived on a cold morning in Kyoto. The dojo sat deep in the mountains. No cars, no noise, no distractions. Only the sound of wind sliding across the old wooden walls. Inside stood a single man, Master Kurogane, a teacher known for producing students whose skills looked supernatural. A man rumored to have trained under monks in the mountains. A man who lived by a single rule: you do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your training. The moment Daichi bowed, the master asked him only one question: why are you here? Daichi answered with what most people say: because I want to become strong, disciplined, focused. I want to stop quitting. The master stared at him for a long moment, then whispered, then you must unlearn everything you think you know about yourself. And with that, Shuhari began. The first stage, Shu, obedience. Shu is the stage no one respects, but everyone needs. It's the stage of obedience, imitation, humility, and complete submission to the form. No creativity, no freedom, no opinions, no personal style, only discipline so strict it feels like suffocation. For the first week, Master Kurogane didn't teach Daichi a single technique, not a punch, not a stance, nothing. Instead, he made him sweep the dojo floor, wash the stone steps, fill the water buckets, sit in silence for long stretches of time. To Daichi, it felt like punishment, a waste of time, a betrayal of his expectations, until the master told him this: if you cannot master the simplest actions, you are not ready to master anything. Most people fail Shu because their ego refuses to kneel. They want shortcuts, hacks, motivation, excitement. They want progress fast enough to feed their identity. But Shu destroys the identity, slowly, deliberately, without apology. The breaking point. On the 8th day, Daichi snapped. He threw the bucket onto the floor, water splashing everywhere. This is pointless. I came here to learn discipline, not chores. Master Kurogane didn't raise his voice. He simply stepped forward and said, if you cannot follow the form, your form will break the moment life pressures you. Shu exists to remove the version of you that collapses. Daichi stood there, breathing hard, realizing the master was right. His entire life had been built on motivation, not submission. He only did the right thing when it felt right, and that version of him had achieved nothing. Shu demanded something different: obedience without emotion, repetition without reward, consistency without applause. Because in this stage, you don't build skill, you build the self that can handle skill. Daichi's transformation begins by the second week. Something started to shift. The chores became smoother, his movements more precise, his mind quieter. He began waking up before the bell rang. He began sweeping without being told. He began focusing on perfect execution, not speed or excitement. He still hadn't learned a single martial arts technique, yet he was already becoming a different person. Because Shu does something the modern world hates. It forces you to surrender control so you can finally learn how to control yourself. The breaking of patterns, Po. By the end of his third week in the mountains, Daichi had changed without realizing it. He no longer questioned the chores. He no longer fought the silence. He no longer lived inside the restless storm of his own thoughts. But that is precisely when the real battle begins. Because once Shu builds the foundation of discipline, Ha arrives to break everything you think discipline is. The master's first lesson. One morning, Master Kurogane placed a wooden bakken, a practice sword, on the floor in front of Daichi. It was the first time he had been given anything resembling actual training. Daichi's eyes widened. Finally, he thought. But when he reached out to pick it up, up. The master kicked it away so hard that it slid across the dojo and hit the far wall. Daichi froze. The master stared into his eyes and said, "In Shu, you learned obedience. In Ha, you learned to confront yourself." He pointed to the bakken on the floor. "Go get it." Daichi walked toward it. When he reached down to grab it, crack! The master struck the wooden floor with his own bakken inches from Daichi's hand. "Too slow," he said. "Again." Daichi tried again, and again, and again. Each time, Master Kurogane knocked the bakken away. Not violently, not angrily, just enough to break Daichi's confidence, just enough to expose hesitation, just enough to show him that discipline built on surface obedience is not enough. Ha is where discipline becomes pressure-tested, the fear of being wrong. After an hour, Daichi's hands were shaking. He wasn't afraid of being hit. He was afraid of failing in front of the master, afraid of disappointing him, afraid of making mistakes. That was when the master said something Daichi would never forget. Perfection is the first enemy of mastery. Fear of mistakes is the second. Then he placed the bakken in Daichi's hands and whispered, "Now strike." Daichi raised the wooden blade and swung with everything he had. It was sloppy, unbalanced, full of hesitation and tension. The master shook his head. "You are trying to be right," he said, "but mastery is not about being right. It is about being real." Daichi didn't understand, so the master explained, "The philosophy of Ha, Horin Ha, means to break, to detach, to challenge, to dismantle the form you learned in Shu. This is the stage where the student begins to experiment, not recklessly, but intentionally. It is the stage where pure obedience becomes conscious understanding, where blind repetition becomes awareness, where effort becomes refinement. But to enter Ha, you must first confront the things that control you, your fear of looking foolish, your ego pretending to be confident, your identity built on weakness, your habits pretending to be discipline. Ha slices through all of them, and for Daichi, the first thing that needed to break was his fear of failure, the exercise that shattered him. For the next week, Master Kurogane gave Daichi only one task: strike, miss, correct, strike again, over and over, hundreds of times, thousands of times. Every mistake had to be repeated slow motion. Every weakness had to be identified out loud. Every strike had to be delivered with absolute intention. Daichi could feel something inside him breaking open. At first, it felt humiliating, but soon, it felt liberating. He began noticing things he never paid attention to: how his breath changed his balance, how his grip tightened in fear, how his shoulders rose when doubt entered his mind, how his thoughts interrupted his movements. These were things he never noticed before, because in real life, people don't see their problems. They only feel the consequences. Ha forces you to observe what you've ignored. It makes the unconscious unavoidable. The day Daichi broke through, one evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Master Kurogane told Daichi to strike one final time. Daichi exhaled, lowered his shoulders, relaxed his grip, and delivered the cleanest, most effortless strike of his life. No tension, no hesitation, no fear, just pure presence. The master nodded. "For the first time," he said, "you were not thinking about the strike. You were simply striking." Daichi felt it too. It was as if his body had moved before his mind could interfere. This was Ha, the stage where technique becomes instinct, and instinct becomes understanding. But Daichi misunderstood something important. He thought this moment meant he was close to mastery. The master corrected him. "You are not even halfway." Daichi frowned. "But I felt progress," the master interrupted. "Nothing more." He walked past Daichi and blew out the training lanterns. "Ha is not about improvement," he said in the dark. "It is about dismantling everything inside you that prevents improvement." Daichi realized he wasn't being trained to master a skill. He was being trained to master himself under pressure, uncertainty, and discomfort. The psychological danger of HA. In the modern world, most people never reach Ha. They get stuck in Shu forever, repeating, copying, imitating, following, because Ha requires courage. The courage to challenge your own assumptions, the courage to confront your own weaknesses, the courage to let go of what you think you know. Daichi was beginning to develop this courage, but he hadn't yet been tested. His first real test was coming, a test that would push him so far into himself that the only way out would be transformation, because the next stage, the final stage, is where ordinary human limits fall away completely. That stage is RI, the stage where the apprentice must become something beyond discipline, free. The rule that breaks you before it builds you in the old wooden dojo. There was a rule every apprentice hated, not because it was difficult, not because it was painful, but because it was boring. Every morning, before sunrise, Kaido and the other students stood side by side on the tatami mats. Their task was simple: repeat the same motion, again and again and again. A single strike, a single block, a single breath, hundreds of times, sometimes thousands. No variation, no improvisation, no shortcuts, just repetition. So extreme that their arms burned long before breakfast. Most students thought this was a warm-up. Kaido thought this was a punishment. But then one morning, halfway through his 500th repetition, Master Master Ishida walked past him and whispered, "Shu begins the moment you break." And just like that, everything shifted. Because the truth is this: you do not enter Shu when you start learning. You enter Shu when your ego collapses, when the work becomes so dull, so repetitive, so uncomfortable, that a weaker version of you wants to quit. Most people never enter Shu because they never push far enough for their ego to actually feel the pressure. Kaido felt it that morning. He felt the crack, that invisible breaking point where your mind screams, "I already know this. This is too much. This is pointless. This is enough." But it wasn't enough. It was the beginning. Shu is not obedience. Shu is surrender. The surrender of comfort. The surrender of impatience. The surrender of the illusion that you're good enough. Master Ishida pointed to Kaido's trembling hands. "Your muscles can adapt," he said, "but your mind cannot adapt until it becomes quiet. Repetition is not for your body. It is to silence the ego that interrupts your growth." This is what the modern world gets wrong. People want discipline without discomfort, growth without boredom, mastery without repetition. They want results, but they fear the silence required to earn them, because in silence, the ego has nowhere to hide. Kaido didn't understand any of this yet, but he felt something awakening, a seriousness he never had before, a respect he didn't know he lacked, a hunger he couldn't fully describe. He still didn't know if he was strong enough, but for the first time, he understood the purpose of the pain, and that was enough. The teacher who never praises you. Weeks passed. Kaido followed every instruction, every rule, every movement, but something began bothering him. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he improved, Master Ishida never praised him, not even once. He corrected him, he challenged him, he even scolded him, but he never said the one thing Kaido desperately wanted to hear: "You're doing well." One night, after training, Kaido approached him. "Master, why do you never tell me if I'm improving?" Master Ishida didn't look at him. Instead, he poured himself tea. Then he said, "Because progress should be felt, not granted." Kaido didn't understand. Master Ishida continued, "If I tell you you're improving, your ego will become hungry for praise. If I tell you you're failing, your ego will become hungry for validation. In both cases, you stop training for mastery and start training to feed something inside you." Then he looked directly at Kaido. "Shu is not about doing things right. It is about becoming the kind of person who does not need applause to continue." Those words struck deeper than any physical blow. Kaido realized something devastating. He had not been training to master the art. He had been training to prove himself worthy of the art. Two very different things. One path leads to growth. The other leads to insecurity disguised as ambition. Master Ishida finished his tea. "When you stop needing my approval," he said, "you will begin to hear a voice much more powerful than mine." Kaido asked quietly, "What voice is that?" Master Ishida smiled. "Your own." The night Kaido wanted to quit, every apprentice reaches a moment where they must confront their shadow. For Kaido, that moment came during a storm. Lightning cracked across the sky, and the dojo shook with each thunderous boom. Rain hammered the roof like fists demanding entry. The other students had already left, but Kaido stayed behind, repeating the same form he drilled all week. His arms felt like stone. His breath came uneven. His vision blurred with exhaustion. Still, he pushed. Strike, block, step, strike, again and again, until suddenly, mid-movement, his balance collapsed. He fell to his knees, palms slamming onto the wooden floor. Sweat dripped like rain. His chest heaved, his fingers trembled, and then the truth he didn't want to face rose inside him. "I can't do this." It came softly at first, then louder still. "I'm not improving. This is too much. I don't belong here. I'm not like the others. I'm wasting my time." The voice twisted deeper, darker, more precise. "You are not built for mastery." That sentence landed like a blade against his spirit. For a moment, the storm outside was nothing compared to the storm inside. Kaido sat alone on the cold floor, thinking about walking out of the dojo and never returning, and maybe he would have if the door hadn't slid open behind him. Master Ishida entered silently. He watched Kaido without speaking, without judging, without offering comfort. Then he said the words every master reserves for only one moment in a student's life. "Good. You've reached the wall." Kaido looked up. Confused, broken, defeated. Master Ishida stepped closer. "Every apprentice hits this wall," he said. "The wall where your effort is no longer enough, where your strength is no longer enough, where your discipline is no longer enough." Kaido lowered his head. "What do I do?" he whispered. Master Ishida's answer was calm but brutal. "You do nothing. You sit with it. You feel it fully, and you let it humble you." He knelt beside Kaido. "The wall isn't there to stop you. It's there to break the version of you that believed progress should be easy." Lightning flashed again. The room glowed white for for a moment. Master Ishida stood. When you rise tomorrow, you rise without the illusion that mastery was ever meant to feel good. Then he walked away, leaving Kaido alone with the storm. That night, Kaido didn't quit, but he didn't train either. He just sat there, listening to the thunder, feeling something inside him die. Later, he would realize that moment was the birth of someone new. The shift you don't notice until it's too late. The human mind changes slowly, so slowly that you don't feel the shift as it happens. But then one day, you realize something is different, and that's what happened to Kaido. After the storm, he returned to training with no expectations, no fantasies, no desperation for approval. He simply showed up, and that's when the first shift appeared. It was small, subtle, almost invisible, but it was real. During morning drills, he noticed that his breath no longer broke during repetition. His movements didn't collapse after 50 strikes. His balance didn't wobble as much. But the most important shift wasn't physical. Something inside him was quieter. Not silent, just quieter. The frustration was softer. The self-doubt had less weight. The resistance didn't rise as violently as before. Kaido wasn't sure what was happening until Master Ishida approached him. He didn't praise him. He didn't smile. He simply said, "Shu has taken root." Kaido frowned. "What does that mean?" Master Ishida replied, "It means discipline has become a behavior, not a battle." Kaido's eyes widened slowly. He understood. Before the storm, training felt like a daily war against himself. Now, it felt like breathing, still difficult, still demanding, but it no longer required the same emotional force. This was the true purpose of Shu. Not perfection, but transformation. To turn discipline from something you force into something you are. Kaito walked home that evening under a fading sunset. He felt no triumph, no pride, just a quiet understanding. He was changing, not dramatically, not suddenly, but undeniably. The old version of him, the one who trained to prove something, was slowly disappearing. A new version was emerging. One who trained because the work itself mattered. One who would be ready for the next stage. The breaking of the rules. But not yet. Not until Shu had fully reshaped him from the inside out. When the rules stop working, some lessons arrive slowly. Others arrive in a single, violent moment. For Kaito, that moment came during sparring. The dojo was silent except for the rhythmic thud of feet against the floor. Two apprentices faced each other, moving through slow, controlled exchanges. Strike, block, reset. Everything predictable. Everything safe. Then Master Ishida gestured for Kaito to step forward. His opponent was Hiroto, the strongest student in the dojo. Wide stance, confident posture, stone calm eyes. Kaito bowed. Hiroto bowed. Sparring began. At first, Kaito relied on the techniques he had repeated endlessly during Shu. Clean blocks, straight strikes, precise steps. But Hiroto was different from the others. He was faster, sharper, more fluid. He broke rhythm. He attacked from angles Kaito wasn't prepared for. He pressured relentlessly. Kaito tried to follow every rule. Exact footwork, perfect posture, correct timing, but he kept falling behind. 2 minutes in, Hiroto swept him to the floor. He didn't hurt him, but he defeated him with ease. Kaito stood, breathing hard, humiliated. Before he could reset, Master Ishida called out, "Again!" The second round was worse. The third was humiliating. The fourth was painful. After the fifth round, Kaito could barely stay standing. He waited for correction, for guidance, for some explanation for why everything was suddenly falling apart. Instead, Master Ishida said, "Good. Shu has reached its limit." Kaito stared in confusion. Master Ishida continued, "You followed the rules perfectly, but perfection is predictable. Predictability is weakness." Kaito felt a chill run down his spine. The master's voice darkened. "Shu makes you disciplined, but ha makes you dangerous." He pointed to Hiroto. "He broke rhythm. He broke pattern. He broke expectation." Then he pointed to Kaito. "And you clung to the very rules that were meant to free you." Kaito felt something heavy in his chest. He realized the truth. There is a point where discipline becomes a cage. Master Ishida approached him slowly. "Your next stage begins now," he said. The breaking. The most dangerous stage of mastery is the stage every apprentice dreams of, but the stage most are unprepared for. Because is not freedom. It is confrontation, not with technique, but with the self. Master Ishida began Kaito's new training by stripping away everything he thought he knew. Movements he memorized, too rigid. Stances he perfected, too predictable. Breathing patterns he drilled for months, too mechanical. Each correction felt like a small death. Kaito's identity, built on discipline, repetition, and rule following, began to crumble. "Master," Kaito finally asked one morning, "if the rules are not enough, then what am I supposed to rely on?" Master Ishida answered with something Kaito would never forget. "Yourself." Kaito blinked. "Myself?" The master nodded. "In Shu, you become a vessel. Empty, open, humble. In you begin to fill that vessel with your own expression." He picked up a bamboo sword and placed it in Kaito's hands. "Mastery is not imitation. It is interpretation." Kaito swallowed hard. "But how do I know if I'm ready?" Master Ishida shook his head. "You don't. No one does. That's why terrifies people." He stepped closer. "In Shu, there is safety. In there is responsibility." Kaito felt the weight of those words settle on him. "This is the stage where apprentices break," the master said. "Not because the training becomes harder, but because they must face a truth they've avoided their whole lives." Kaito whispered, "And what truth is that?" that? Master Ishida looked him directly in the eyes. There are no more instructions. A silence followed, deep, heavy, uncomfortable. Then the master added, "You must now think. You must now see. You must now choose." He turned away. "From this point on, your mistakes are your own." Kaido felt something inside him tremble. Not fear, but awareness. This was not the end of discipline. This was the beginning of creativity. This was not rebellion. This was responsibility. This was not the collapse of rules. This was the realization that rules were only the foundation, not the destination. The training to come would demand something far harder than repetition, the willingness to trust his own emerging mastery. Kaido didn't know it yet, but Ha would change him more violently than Shu ever did, not by breaking his body, but by breaking the last remaining cage inside his mind. When instinct betrays you, Ha begins quietly. Then it turns violent because it exposes parts of you that discipline can't protect. Kaido learned this the hard way. During Ha training, Master Ishida removed every structure Kaido depended on. No fixed routines, no predictable drills, no guaranteed order. One day the training was fast, the next slow. One day Kaido was told to improvise. The next, he was forbidden from improvising at all. Kaido hated it, not because it was difficult, but because it made him feel lost. Without structure, he felt exposed. His instincts weren't sharp enough. His reactions weren't refined enough. He second-guessed every movement. And when you hesitate in martial arts, you lose. Again and again, Kaido found himself overwhelmed. During partner sparring, apprentices he once easily matched now slipped through his defenses. He blocked too early, or too late, or not at all. He struck too predictably, or too cautiously, or too aggressively. He felt like a beginner again, and that was the point. Master Ishida watched him struggle for days before finally speaking. "You think mastery is built on instinct," he said, "but instinct is just an echo of who you used to be." Kaido looked up, breathless. The master continued, "It requires you to destroy those old instincts so new ones can form." Kaido clenched his fists. "But it feels like everything I learned is falling apart." Master Ishida nodded. "Exactly." He stepped closer, voice low. "You cannot enter Ha until your old identity begins to crumble." Kaido felt a chill. This wasn't about technique. It was about ego. The ego that wanted to feel skilled. The ego that wanted to feel certain. The ego that wanted to feel in control. But Ha gives you nothing to hold on to, and that is why it's terrifying. Master Ishida pointed to Kaido's trembling hands. "These shakes," he said, "are not from weakness. They are from transformation." When the master stops teaching Ha is the stage where most students fail. Not because it is too hard, but because it is too unclear. There is no longer a correct answer, no longer a single path to follow, and that uncertainty destroys people. One morning, Kaido arrived expecting guidance, a new drill, a new form, a correction, anything. Instead, the dojo was empty, quiet, still, almost unsettling. He waited. Minutes passed, then an hour. Still no sign of Master Ishida. Finally, Hiroto entered and tied his belt. Kaido asked, "Where is the master?" Hiroto didn't look at him. He said, "You're in Ha now." Kaido frowned. "What does that mean?" Hiroto tightened his belt. "It means he won't be teaching you for a while." Kaido felt something twist in his stomach. No teacher, no instruction, no guidance. Hiroto continued, "In Ha, the master becomes silent. If he keeps correcting you, you'll depend on him forever." Kaido tried to hide his fear, but Hiroto saw it. He added, "Shu teaches you to obey. Ha forces you to see for yourself." Kaido glanced around the empty dojo. "What am I supposed to do?" he asked quietly. Hiroto gave him the most honest answer anyone had given him so far. "Figure it out." Kaido's heart sank. Shu was predictable, safe, comforting. Ha was none of those things. It was raw, confusing, lonely. Master Ishida's absence felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with no one behind him. For a moment, Kaido considered leaving, but then he remembered something the master had told him weeks earlier. If you cannot move without instructions, you have learned nothing. So Kaido began. He trained alone, clumsy at first, awkward, embarrassing. He experimented with movements he had never tried. He combined techniques that weren't meant to be combined. He improvised footwork. He shifted angles. He changed rhythm. Sometimes he felt brilliant, other times he felt foolish. But slowly, unpredictably, something began to awaken inside him. A sense of awareness that did not come from the master. A sense of creativity that did not come from repetition. A sense of identity that did not come from structure. Ha was working. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't organized. It wasn't stable. But it was real. And for the first time, Kaido realized he was learning to think like a master. Not perfectly, not consistently, but undeniably. This was the beginning of something dangerous, something powerful, something his old self would never have survived. When the form breaks you back. There is a moment in every serious apprentice's journey where the system itself seems to collapse on top of them. A moment where the very structure that once protected them now feels like a cage tightening around their ribs. For Akio, that moment arrived inside a storm. Not a metaphorical one, a real one. A typhoon slammed against the wooden walls of the temple, a deafening roar of wind powerful, enough to shake the meditation hall itself. Rain hammered the roof like stones. The sky looked bruised, monstrous. Trees bent, lanterns blew out. And inside the dim training hall, Master Renji placed a single candle on the floor and said, "Today, we test your ha." Akio swallowed. He already knew what ha meant, breaking the form. But he didn't yet understand how violent that break could be. The master gestured to the candle's flame flickering wildly under the pressure of the storm. "Your kata will not survive today," Renji said. "But will you?" He ordered Akio to begin the sequence he had practiced for over 200 days. Akio's feet took the traditional stance. His hands followed the familiar opening gesture. His breathing settled into the rhythm the kata demanded. But the wind was too strong, the air too unstable, the floor slightly vibrating with each gust. His movements were disrupted, his balance failed, his stance broke, his breathing collapsed into chaos. The kata, his anchor, was falling apart. That was the point. Renji watched calmly, arms crossed. "Good," he said. "Now you must move without certainty, act without pattern, respond without thinking." Akio felt panic rise in him. For months, the form had been a safety net. Every morning, every evening, every repetition came with the comfort of knowing exactly what to do next. But now the master was ripping that net away. The storm surged and Renji shouted over the wind, "This is where weak men die as students and strong men are reborn as warriors." The candle flame twisted violently. Akio's muscles tightened. Every movement he tried to execute felt wrong. His shoulders collapsed. His strikes lost direction. His mind screamed, "I'm failing. I'm failing. I'm failing." Master Renji stepped closer. "You are not failing," he said. "You are meeting the wall between Shu and Ha. And most people turn back here. They crawl back to their comfort. They cling to form." He pointed to Akio's trembling stance. "But you must break it." Then the test became worse. Renji suddenly attacked. Not gently, not symbolically. A real strike. A sweeping movement aimed at Akio's ribs. Akio barely blocked it, his body reacting purely on instinct. Renji struck again, faster, and Akio stumbled, losing balance. "Stop thinking," the master roared. "Let your body move. Let the form crack. Let instinct appear. Strike, block, strike, step, strike." Each attack forced Akio's body to improvise, not elegantly, but desperately, primitively, authentically. He was shaking, breathing ragged, mind spinning. And then something strange happened. His body moved before his thoughts did. A block came out of nowhere. A counterstep emerged without planning. A shift in weight happened without conscious decision. He wasn't performing the kata anymore. He was fighting. Not correctly, but truthfully. Master Renji stepped back, the storm still roaring around them. "Now you understand," he said. Akio looked at his own hands, trembling. What was that?" he said. Renji pointed to Akio's chest. "Ha, the fragmentation, the collapse, the moment your mind stops trying to prove you learned the form and begins to discover who you are without it." He lifted the candle again and placed it in Akio's hands. Shu teaches discipline. Ha teaches danger. Akio's breath shivered. Renji leaned forward, voice low. "In Shu, you obey. In Ha, you rebel. In Shu, you attach. In Ha, you cut away." The master tapped the candle's base. This flame survived the storm because it stopped trying to stay still. It moved with the wind. You must do the same. The candle burned steady in Akio's hands, and he finally understood. Every form you learn must one day be broken. Every technique must one day be shattered. Every rule must one day be abandoned. Not because they are wrong, but because you can't reach mastery while still holding onto the scaffolding. Master Renji walked toward the exit, sliding open the hall door. Wind roared through the room. "Come," he said. "Your real Ha begins outside." Akio stepped into the storm, and the storm swallowed him whole. The weight of choices. Life doesn't become heavy because of the things that happen to us. It becomes heavy because of the choices we avoid making. Every unspoken truth, every postponed decision, every ignored intuition adds an invisible weight to the mind. We tell ourselves we're waiting for the right moment, but in reality, we're waiting for the fear to disappear. And fear doesn't leave on its own. It grows in the empty spaces where action should have been. The truth is simple. Not choosing is a choice. Not acting is an action. And both shape reality just as powerfully. But the moment you decide, even if the decision is small, the weight begins to lift. Life becomes clearer. Paths open. Possibilities return. It's not about choosing perfectly. It's about choosing consciously. Because the person who refuses to choose lives a life that is chosen for them. The mind's silent saboteur. Most people believe their greatest enemy is outside them. A rival, a critic, a circumstance. But the real enemy is quieter. It speaks softly. It uses your own voice. It whispers the most dangerous sentence in the world. Maybe later. This voice doesn't attack you. It lulls you. It convinces you that delaying is harmless, that you have time, that tomorrow will somehow require less courage than today. But every later reshapes the mind. It teaches your brain that hesitation is safer than action. And slowly, without noticing, you become a person who watches life instead of living it. Your biggest battles will always be internal, not against weakness, but against the illusions that your mind builds to protect you. Clarity begins the moment you catch that whisper and answer it with action. Small, imperfect, immediate action. Because the voice of doubt is powerful, but it cannot survive movement. The lessons hidden in difficulty. People think difficulty is a punishment, a sign that something is wrong, a signal to step back or slow down. But difficulty is often a message, a guide, a form of truth that doesn't use words. Life doesn't test you to break you. It tests you to reveal you. Every challenge exposes something. Your patience, your habits, your fears, your limits, your potential. You don't discover who you are when everything is easy. You discover it when everything is uncertain. Hard moments aren't walls blocking your path. They are mirrors placed in front of you, showing you the parts of yourself you're finally ready to confront. And once you understand this, difficulty becomes less frightening because you realize it's not there to stop you. It's there to shape you. Growth never hides inside comfort. It always hides inside struggle. The unlived life within you. Inside every person, there are two lives. The life they are currently living, and the life they could be living. The second one whispers. It shows up in moments of quiet, in the ideas you keep postponing, in the dreams you keep shrinking, in the instincts you keep ignoring. Most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they aim too low and still hesitate. The unlived life isn't stopped by lack of time, or lack of resources, or lack of opportunity. It is stopped by one thing: the resistance between who you are and who you know you're supposed to become. That tension you feel, the restlessness, the dissatisfaction, the sense that something is missing, that is the unlived life calling you. And it keeps calling until you either step into it or learn to silence yourself enough to forget it exists. But the truth is, you never really forget. You just get used to the feeling of living below your potential. Becoming someone you can respect. At the end of everything, beyond discipline, beyond philosophy, beyond self-improvement, there is only one question that truly matters. Do you respect the person you are becoming? Respect isn't built from achievements. It's built from alignment, from living in a way that matches the truth you already know. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be fearless. You don't need to have every answer. You only need to move closer to the person you know. Deep down, you were meant to be. The version of you who takes responsibility. The version who chooses action over avoidance. The version who doesn't run from discomfort. The version who doesn't betray themselves for convenience or comfort or approval. Transformation begins the moment you stop asking, "What will this cost me?" and start asking, "What will it cost me if I don't?" Because the price of inaction is always the same. A quiet life filled with regrets you're too scared to speak aloud. But the price of action, the price of growth, is becoming someone you can finally respect, someone you trust, Someone who walks into the world with a calm strength that can't be faked. And once you feel that, once you taste the life that comes from discipline, clarity, and courage, you can never go back. Not because you've changed, but because you've finally become who you were supposed to be all along.